loggers, welcome back to Liminal Logs. I just want to say, I love doing this. Making these stories, building this creepy little universe for you all. It's honestly something I'm proud of. The dream is to make this a full-time thing one day. But for now, we're still on the way up. So, if you enjoy what I do and want to see more, hit like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and most importantly, share the videos with your friends. Let's push this channel to 1,000 loggers together. Let's dive into today's story. I used to think nothing could scare me anymore. After everything I'd seen, old houses that breathed, fields that remembered light, voices caught in static, I figured Halloween would always feel like a parody of what I'd lived through. But this October, something strange happened. Something that made even me keep the lights on. It started with an email. Subject line, "Welcome resident. No sender name, no return address." The message body was short. "You've been accepted for residency at Hallows Edge. Arrival date, October 20th, 12 nights. Bring nothing that can reflect light." At first, I thought it was spam. Maybe some immersive horror attraction. But the address listed at the bottom was real, a location way out near the coast, deep in pine country, a place I'd never heard of. I should have deleted it. Instead, I packed a bag. The drive took nearly 6 hours. I left behind the suburbs, then the small towns, then even the streetlights. The GPS lost signal an hour before I arrived. All I had was an old printed map attached to the email. The road turned from asphalt to gravel, then to packed dirt. The trees closed in like tall black walls, their branches clawing overhead until the sky was gone. Just before the road ended, a hand-painted sign appeared, nailed to a tree. "Hallows Edge, private grounds." A rusted gate stood beyond it, one half open, hinges moaning in the wind. Past the gate, the forest thinned suddenly, and there it was. A sprawling manor made of dark wood and gray stone, perched on a cliff above the sea. Every window burned orange with candlelight. No cars, no people, just the wind and the distant sound of waves crashing somewhere far below. I parked in the circular driveway and stepped out. The air smelled like smoke and salt. It felt colder here, like the season itself was sharper. As I walked up the stairs, the front door opened before I could knock. A woman stood in the doorway, tall, pale, hair tied in a bun streaked with white. Her dress was older than time, Victorian black lace with candle wax stains down the sleeves. "You're early," she said, voice calm but dry, like paper sliding against stone. "The others haven't arrived yet." The foyer was enormous. High ceilings, chandeliers of iron and bone, walls covered in portraits whose eyes followed just a little too well. Every candle burned the same steady orange flame, not flickering even in the draft. The woman guided me toward the parlor. I noticed she never once looked at her reflection in the tall, dust-covered mirror by the door. "May I ask what this residency is?" I said, trying to sound casual. She smiled faintly. "It's a gathering of the chosen 12. You'll see." "Chosen for what?" Her smile didn't fade, but it didn't reach her eyes either. "To finish what the town began 100 years ago." Before I could ask what that meant, she stopped in front of the fireplace. Above it hung a large painting of the manor itself, but something about it was wrong. The painting showed the house surrounded not by forest, but by empty graves. Fresh graves. 12 of them. "I should go," I said quietly. The woman tilted her head. "Oh, you can't," she said almost gently. "Once you've arrived, you stay. Until it's done." She turned away, her dress whispering against the stone floor. From somewhere deeper in the house, I heard a clock begin to chime. Slow, deliberate, each ring echoing like a heartbeat through the walls. When the last chime faded, I realized there was no clock in sight. The woman looked back at me. Her eyes reflected the firelight, but only the light. No pupils, no color. "Rest, resident," she said softly. "Night one begins when the lights go out." I was halfway up the grand staircase when I heard something move behind me. Not footsteps, something heavier, dragging. When I turned, no one was there. But the candles along the wall were flickering now, one by one, as if something was walking past them just out of sight. At the top of the stairs was a long hallway lined with identical doors. Every doorknob was labeled with a brass number, 1 through 12. The key in my hand, left on the entry table, was engraved with 7. Room 7. When I unlocked it, I felt a static charge run through my fingers like touching old film. The door opened with a sound like a slow inhale. The room was simple. Bed, desk, a small oil lamp, and a single window overlooking the sea. But there was something sitting on the pillow. A folded note. The handwriting was elegant and small. For the 7th night, do not answer when it calls your name. I tried leaving the window open for air, but when I did, I realized there was no sound outside. No wind. No ocean, just the hollow silence of a place holding its breath. And when I looked out into the reflection in the glass, I could see the forest again, thick, endless, full of moving shapes that didn't seem to mind that the night hadn't started yet. I closed the window. The candles went out, and from somewhere below, faint but clear, I heard 11 other doors unlock. I didn't sleep that first night. The walls had that kind of silence that doesn't mean peace. It means listening. You could almost hear the wood breathe. It would creak in slow waves like lungs beneath the floorboards. Around midnight, a faint knock echoed from somewhere down the hall. Not loud, just 3 taps spaced evenly apart. I thought one of the other guests had arrived late. Then I remembered what the note had said. Do not answer when it calls your name. I hadn't given anyone my name yet. But a few seconds later, I heard it whispered through the keyhole. Please, open the door. My name. The voice was low, close, like someone kneeling on the other side, lips almost pressed to the wood. When I didn't respond, the knocking stopped. Silence stretched thin. Then softly, you're already late. I sat in the dark until dawn. Morning in Hollow's Edge didn't feel like morning anywhere else. The air was thick with salt from the unseen sea, and the light came in orange, not gold, filtered through curtains that seemed dusted with ash. When I opened my door, 11 others were doing the same. They looked as confused as I felt. A dozen strangers, all holding keys that matched the Roman numerals on their doors. No one spoke for a moment. Finally, a man in his 30s, lean, pale, wearing a press badge that had faded to illegibility, said, "So, are we supposed to introduce ourselves or pretend this is normal?" Before anyone could answer, footsteps echoed from the grand staircase. The woman in the black dress, our host, was standing at the bottom, hands folded neatly before her. "Good morning, residents," she said. "Welcome to Hollow's Edge. You are the 12th generation of our circle." Her voice carried through the air like a hymn that didn't need lungs. She gestured for us to follow her into the dining hall. The hall was enormous. A single long table stretched nearly the entire room, already set for breakfast. Black plates, silver utensils tarnished with age, and 12 glasses filled with what looked like dark red wine. Steam rose from the food, though no one had brought it in. There were no servants, only the woman standing behind the far chair, the head of the table, smiling faintly. "Before we begin," she said, "each of you must confirm your place. The order matters." She gestured to the brass numbers carved into the back of each chair. I found mine easily. 7. The 7th seat from the left. The others followed. To my right sat a young woman who introduced herself as Clara, an art student from Boston. To my left, the journalist. His name was Harris. "Did you also get that weird email?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "Same thing. No sender, no attachments, just coordinates and a date." He sipped from his glass, frowned. "What the hell is this place?" Before I could answer, the woman at the head of the table raised her hands. Let the first night be sealed. The candles in the chandeliers flared bright orange for a second, then dimmed to embers. The wine in every glass rippled once, as if reacting to something unseen. And then, somewhere above us, a door slammed. We all jumped. The sound came from the second floor, directly above the hall. For a moment, no one moved. Then Clara whispered, "Someone else is here." The woman's smile didn't falter. "There are always 12, she said softly. "Some simply arrive late." She turned her gaze to the staircase where a shadow moved just beyond the railing, tall, slow, and silent. The candles flickered as it passed. When it reached the bottom step, I finally saw its face, or rather the lack of one. Where its features should have been, there was smooth, wax-like skin stretched over bone, faintly reflective like melted candlelight. It was wearing clothes that looked decades out of fashion. Suspenders, a torn white shirt, trousers rolled at the ankles. The woman inclined her head slightly. "Welcome back," she said to it. Then to us, "Do not be afraid. He is only the keeper. He remembers for us." The faceless man turned slowly toward the table. I could hear his breathing, shallow, strained, like wind moving through a flute. He carried something in his hands, a wooden box with the Roman numeral 1 carved into the lid. He set it in front of the woman, then stood behind her chair like a statue. "The first box," she said, resting her hands atop it. "Each night one will open. Each night one of you will remember." "Remember what?" Harris asked. The woman looked straight at him. "What happened here a century ago?" After breakfast, we were allowed to explore the grounds. The manor was surrounded by cliffs on 3 sides, forest on the 4th. The air carried a faint ringing, almost too high-pitched to notice, like an old television left on in another room. Clara and I found the graveyard from the painting behind the house. There were 12 headstones. None had names, only Roman numerals. "I'm starting to think this isn't a game," she said. "Maybe it's a cult," I muttered. She laughed nervously. "A cult with catering." But when she looked down, her smile faded. The 7th grave, my number, had fresh dirt on it. That night, the woman gathered us all again in the parlor. The keeper brought the wooden box to her lap. "Night 1, she said softly. "Let the first be opened." The box clicked open by itself. Inside was a folded piece of parchment, yellow with age. She read aloud. October 20th, 1923. The first was taken from the forest. He knocked 3 times and the house answered. Then she looked directly at me. The first memory belongs to you. Before I could speak, the candles went out. In the dark, something brushed my shoulder, cold and damp, like a hand pulled from water. I turned toward where it had come from, and there, faintly lit by the dying embers of the hearth, I saw a shape at the window. A man, drenched and grinning, pressing his forehead against the glass. He knocked 3 times, and this time he said my name. The knocking didn't stop until I said it out loud. My name. Just my name. Nothing else. The sound froze halfway through the 3rd knock, like the air itself had forgotten how to carry sound. Then came silence, deeper than before, so thick it felt like standing underwater. The others were still in the parlor, frozen mid-breath, candlelight hovering over their faces but not moving. The woman at the head of the room, our host, was smiling faintly at me, her eyes reflecting the window's glow. "You've heard him now," she said. "That means it's your turn." "My turn for what?" "To remember." The keeper, the faceless man, reached out and touched the window pane where the wet handprint still lingered. The moment his fingers met the glass, the world fell away. The floor vanished. The room stretched outward until it was nothing but endless, colorless light, and in the middle of it stood a door. Old wood, iron hinges, water dripping from the handle. I looked down. I was barefoot, standing in shallow water that rippled faintly with every heartbeat. The woman's voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once. The first night remembers the first visitor. When I opened the door, the world shifted again. I was no longer in Hollow's Edge. I was standing in a forest. The trees were bent backward, their bark slick with rain. Fog wove between them like veins. The moon was orange and low, the color of rusted metal. A small cottage stood in the clearing ahead, its windows dark. I didn't know how I knew, but I was certain it was 1923. There was someone at the cottage door, a young man in torn work clothes clutching a lantern. His hands shook so hard that the light trembled like it wanted to escape him. He turned toward me suddenly, and I saw his face. The same face I'd seen pressed against the window in the parlor. He couldn't see me. I knew that somehow. But I could see everything he did. He stepped up to the door, breathing hard. Rain soaked his hair flat against his skull. Then he knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. The door creaked open by itself. The lantern flickered. He whispered, "Hello." From inside, a voice replied. Calm, female, familiar. "Welcome, resident." He stepped inside. The cottage's interior didn't match its size from outside. It was too large. A long hallway lined with doors, each numbered 1 through 12. The air shimmered like heat over asphalt. Every door breathed faintly, inhaling and exhaling in sync. The man called out again, "Is someone here?" The hallway answered with a whisper of movement. Something crawling just beneath the floorboards. Then the door marked ice swung open. A faint glow poured out. Not firelight, not candlelight, but something colder. When he leaned inside, the walls of the hallway changed. Every door now had his reflection standing in front of it. 12 versions of him, each older than the last, staring straight ahead with hollow eyes. The man gasped and stumbled backward. The door closed, and one of the reflections stayed. It pressed a hand against the glass. The real man mirrored the motion, trembling. Then the reflection smiled, the same wrong, wet grin I'd seen through the parlor window. The glass bulged outward, stretching like skin. The reflection reached through. The world flashed white again. I was back in the parlor. The others were breathing again, murmuring nervously. The woman smiled at me as if nothing had happened. "The first one to arrive," she said softly. "He built the door between memory and mirror." She turned to the others. "Now the 7th has seen. The cycle continues." Harris, the journalist, stood up. "What the hell did you do to him?" "Nothing," she said. "He's remembering for us. That's his place." I looked at the window. The handprint was gone, but in the reflection faintly the young man from 1923 was still there, watching. He raised a hand, pointed directly at me, then pressed something invisible against the inside of the glass. The reflection distorted, rippling outward in 12 perfect rings before going still. And in the whisper of the fading echo, I heard his voice again. "Don't knock on night 2. We were dismissed shortly after. The woman's words lingered in my head as we went upstairs. He built the door. As I reached the landing, I saw something wet dripping from the ceiling, thick, clear fluid like dew forming too fast. It was dripping from the chandelier. When I looked up, I realized the bulbs weren't bulbs at all. They were eyes, 12 of them, each one staring in a different direction. And one, just one, looked directly at me. That night, as I sat in bed with the oil lamp burning low, I wrote everything I could remember about the vision. But the ink on the page refused to dry. The letters began to blur, running together into shapes that weren't words. Something written in that old looping script I'd seen on the first note. It spelled 3 words over and over again. The house remembers. I looked up. The mirror above the desk was fogged over from the inside, and written across it, traced by an invisible hand, was a sentence that hadn't been there before. night too belongs to the glass. I woke to the sound of glass breathing, not cracking, not tapping, breathing. The mirror above the desk was fogged again, pulsing faintly with every inhale like it was alive. Each time it exhaled, the room grew colder. Somewhere down the hall, a door opened. Soft footsteps followed, slow and bare, padding against the wood. I reached for the lamp. It flickered twice, then went out. The voice that came next was barely above a whisper. It's time to remember the second. By morning, one of the residents was gone. The empty chair at breakfast was number 2's, a quiet woman named Evelyn. She'd barely spoken the day before, just smiled politely when the others introduced themselves. Now her door was wide open, her bed unslept in. On her pillow lay a mirror, small, oval, silver framed. The glass inside shimmered faintly, like sunlight on water. When I touched it, the surface rippled under my fingers. Warm, not cold. Beneath that shimmer was an image forming. Not Evelyn, all 12 of us, seated at the dining table. But one seat was empty. The woman in black entered the hall, her steps silent as dust. Evelyn's turn has passed, she said simply. She opened the second door. What does that mean? Harris asked, voice shaking. Where is she? The woman didn't answer. Instead, she lifted the mirror from my hands and turned it toward the rest of us. The reflection showed the dining room. This same moment. Except there was someone else seated among us. A 13th figure, just barely visible at the edge of the frame. It wasn't Evelyn. It was something thinner, its shape stretched and wrong, like the outline of a person drawn in steam. It was facing me. We didn't eat that morning. After the woman left, the rest of us gathered in the parlor. Clara was shaking. Harris kept pacing. This is all a setup, he said. Some immersive art thing. Cameras, projection mapping, something. Then where's Evelyn? I asked. He didn't answer. Clara pointed to the fireplace. Something was written in the soot above it, carved into the brick by a finger or something sharper. Every door is a mirror. That night the storm came in. I didn't know the sea could sound like that, like something breathing through its teeth. The wind howled through cracks in the shutters, and the floorboards shivered beneath my feet. The note for the second night was already waiting on my pillow. If the reflection speaks, listen, but never look twice. I didn't want to be alone, so I went to Harris's room. His lamp was still on. He was sitting at his desk staring into his mirror. At first I thought he was talking to himself. Then I realized the reflection was moving after his words. Not in sync, delayed. like the mirror was thinking about what to say before replying. Harris, what are you? Reflection. I'm what happens when you stay. I stepped back, heart thudding. The reflection turned its head toward me, but Harris didn't move. It smiled. Then Harris blinked, and the smile was gone. He looked up, confused. Did you see that? Yeah, I said. You should cover that thing. We threw a sheet over the mirror, but even through the fabric we could see light bleeding from beneath it. Soft, red, pulsing like a heartbeat. Just before midnight, the house started humming. Every mirror, every window pane, every scrap of reflective metal began to tremble, like they were all connected. And from somewhere deep inside the walls came the same steady rhythm. 3 knocks, then a 4th. The sheet over Harris's mirror lifted, pulled upward by something invisible. The reflection beneath it was no longer ours. It showed the dining room again, the table now set with 13 chairs. The 13th seat was filled. Evelyn was sitting there, her face pale, eyes blank. She turned toward us, lips moving slowly, silently forming a word. When she blinked, I saw my reflection blink with her. Harris ran. The reflection didn't. It stood. The movement rippled through every reflective surface in the room. The window, the glass of the oil lamp, even the shine on the brass doorknob. Every surface showed Evelyn standing behind us. Then the mirror cracked. The sound was like a scream held too long, shattering inward instead of out. When I turned back to Harris, he was gone. Only his reflection remained, hands pressed against the inside of the glass, mouth open in a silent shout. The crack in the mirror sealed shut. The glass went still, and the number above his door, 8, flickered once before fading entirely. I ran into the hall, shouting for the others. Doors opened, frightened faces appeared, but no one dared step into the light spilling from Harris's room. At the far end of the corridor, the woman in black stood watching. In her hand, the second box. She smiled faintly. Night 2 is closed, she said. The reflection has been fed. Then she turned to the faceless keeper. Bring the third. That night, I dreamed of water dripping onto glass. Each drop carried a reflection that wasn't mine. When I woke, the mirror above my desk was fogged again. But this time, the message wasn't written on it. It was written behind the glass, reversed and glowing faintly in orange light. Night 3 opens from the inside. By the morning of the 3rd day, half of us were missing. Harris and Evelyn were gone. Rooms spotless, beds untouched. No sign that they'd ever existed except for their names etched faintly into the glass of their mirrors. The woman in black didn't even mention them at breakfast. She just said, 6 of you remain awake. That is balance enough. There were still 7 of us technically, but she'd said 6. Clara leaned in close to whisper, "She's counting you already." The house had changed overnight. The hallways were longer than before. The staircase turned in the wrong direction. A thick mist crawled along the floorboards in the east wing, clinging to our shoes when we walked. And every window, every single one, was covered from the outside with something that looked like frost, except it pulsed with heat instead of cold. The woman called it reflection rot. Said it happens when the mirrors remember too much. None of us laughed. That afternoon, Clara found something hidden behind one of the portraits in the parlor, a door. It wasn't like the others. It was small, barely big enough for a person to crawl through, with a round brass handle shaped like an eye. Above it, carved into the wood, was the Roman numeral 3. The moment we touched it, a low hum filled the walls. The keeper appeared in the doorway, silent as always, holding the 3rd box. The woman followed behind him, her dress whispering across the floor. "Night 3, she said, "the mirror within." When she opened the box, there was no parchment this time, only a piece of glass, cracked at one corner, wrapped in black cloth. She handed it to me. The moment my fingers touched it, warmth spread up my arm. "Do you feel it?" she asked. "Yes," I whispered. "That means the house has chosen where to open." That night, the storm returned. Lightning tore across the sky like white scars. The sound of waves below the cliff was louder than ever, crashing against rock in rhythms that didn't match the wind. None of us dared sleep. At exactly midnight, the note appeared under my door. "You will see yourself. You will not believe it is you." When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in my room. I was standing in the east corridor, the one with the mist. The air was warm, humid, thick with the smell of metal and ozone. The walls shimmered faintly, and when I touched them, I realized why. They weren't wood anymore. They were glass. The hallway stretched forever in both directions, each pane reflecting my image, multiplying it endlessly until I couldn't tell where I was standing. Every reflection blinked at a different time. Every reflection breathed at a different rhythm. And then one of them smiled. Not me, it. The reflection in the nearest wall stepped forward, its hands pressing against the inside of the glass. A hairline crack spread from its fingertips, glowing faintly orange. "You have to open the door," it said. "I don't want to." "You already did." The crack widened. A sound echoed down the corridor, the same 3 knocks as before. This time they came from inside the glass, each one shaking the entire hall like a heartbeat. I turned to run, but every reflection turned too, except one. It stayed perfectly still, watching me, and then it stepped out. It didn't climb or break the glass. It just walked through, as if the surface were liquid. The reflection looked exactly like me. Same clothes, same cut on my hand. But its eyes were wrong. Flat, silver, reflective. When it spoke, the voice echoed slightly like it was coming from two mouths. I remember you from the other side. I backed away. What are you? I'm what's left behind when the light turns off. It reached toward me, palm up, a perfect mirror of my motion. For a second I almost touched it, just to prove it wasn't real. But the heat coming off its hand burned the air between us. It smiled again, lips trembling. When the mirror opens, something has to cross. Choose which one. Before I could answer, the world shattered. The glass exploded outward in every direction, raining silver shards that hung in the air instead of falling. Each shard held a moving reflection, fragments of every night so far, every missing person, every scream. The light flickered once, then died. When it came back, I was back in my room. The floor was covered in glass. Every shard reflected the same thing. Me asleep in bed, eyes open. The next morning, there were only 5 of us at breakfast. The woman smiled. The 3rd door has been opened. The house is closer to whole. She placed a small mirror in front of my plate. In it, my reflection was sleeping peacefully. But when I leaned closer, it whispered back, "You're on the wrong side now." That night, Clara knocked softly on my door. She looked pale, eyes ringed with red. "I think the mirrors are in our rooms now," she said. "They weren't before, but they are now. I hear them talking." "Talking?" She nodded. Mine said it's hungry. We sat in silence for a long time, listening to the house breathe. And just before she left, she said something I can't forget. The woman said 12 nights, but I counted the candles in the dining room this morning. There were 13. By the 6th night, the house had stopped pretending to be a house. The air felt heavier now, like we were underwater but still breathing. The wallpaper pulsed faintly, veins of light moving beneath the patterns. And every few minutes the entire manor let out a groan deep enough to shake the silverware in the drawers. I remember looking at the ceiling that morning and realizing the chandeliers weren't hanging anymore. They were floating, spinning slowly in a lazy orbit as if the laws of gravity had politely stepped aside. And yet, somehow, we still followed the same routine. Breakfast, questions, fear, waiting. Clara wouldn't stop staring at the dining table. She kept counting the candles. 13, she whispered again. Always 13. The woman in black, our host, glided into the room, smiling as if she'd heard her. Are you certain? She asked softly. Yes, Clara said. There are 13. I counted them every day. The woman tilted her head. Then show me. Clara stood, pointing from left to right. 1, 2, 3. When she reached 12, her hand froze. There wasn't a 13th candle anymore. The space where it had been was empty. Bare wood, dark wax stains. The woman smiled. You see, the house corrects what shouldn't be noticed. But I saw it, Clara whispered. Yes, said the woman, and that's why it will remember you. The keeper appeared in the doorway then, carrying the 4th box. But there was something new. On his faceless surface, faint lines had begun to form, the suggestion of features pressing out from beneath the wax, a face trying to remember itself. He placed the box on the table beside the empty candle holder. The woman touched the lid. Night 4 will open soon, she murmured. But first, the forgotten flame. She gestured to the unlit space and a spark flickered into existence. A 13th flame, trembling faintly, black at its core. The room grew darker even though there was more light. This flame, she said, belongs to the guest who never arrived. That night I found Clara sitting in the corridor outside her room, arms wrapped around her knees, staring at the opposite wall. What are you doing out here? I asked. Listening, she said. To what? The one behind the wall. It's been whispering since dinner. I pressed my ear to the wood. For a second I heard nothing. Then, faintly, like a record playing underwater, came a voice. Light it. Light the last one. Clara grabbed my arm. Don't. That's how it gets in. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes darted constantly, watching things I couldn't see. Every candle is a door, she said, and one of them isn't supposed to open. At midnight, the storm returned with full force. The house trembled. All the candles in the corridors went out except 12. The 13th stayed lit, its black flame swaying in time with the thunder. That's when we heard the knock. Not the soft human kind. This was deep, echoing, like a fist made of stone hitting from inside the walls. 3 knocks, then silence. The woman appeared at the end of the hall, holding the unlit 13th candle. The missing guest has arrived, she said quietly. The keeper followed behind her, carrying the 4th box. As he passed me, I saw something move beneath his wax skin, a shape pressing forward, mouth-shaped, whispering. "Who's the missing guest?" I asked. The woman's smile didn't change. "You are." The house went black. For a few seconds, all I could hear was breathing, dozens of overlapping voices gasping in the dark, as if everyone in the house was sharing one set of lungs. When the lights returned, everyone was seated again at the dining table. No one remembered walking there. The 13th candle was burning in the center now, its black flame spreading smoke across the tablecloth like spilled ink. The woman touched the 4th box. The wood hissed softly under her fingers. "This one opens itself," she said. The lid flipped open and a rush of cold air poured out. Inside was a single candle, half melted, black wax dripping constantly, though there was no heat. She handed it to Clara. "The forgotten must carry the forgotten," she said. Clara's hands shook as she held it. The moment the wax touched her skin, she went still. Her pupils dilated until they swallowed the color of her eyes completely. And then she whispered, voice hollow, "The 13th isn't a number. It's a reflection." The candle's flame flickered once and died. Clara dropped it. The wax shattered like glass. When the light returned, her chair was empty. The woman sighed softly. "The 13th flame has been lit," she said. "The balance continues." She turned to me. "Do you see now, resident? There have always been 13. One simply waits for another to forget. That night I found something under my door. Not a note this time. A matchbook. On its cover, embossed in faded silver. Hallows Edge Inn established 1823. And written inside, in shaky handwriting that wasn't mine. "When the last candle burns out, light this." I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Because even after the candles died, the house didn't get dark. Every surface began to glow faintly. The walls, the floors, even the dust in the air. And in that pale light, I could see movement inside the shadows, shapes bending and stretching, crawling toward the stairs. There were 13 of them, and they were all us. The 13th shapes didn't move like people. They flowed slow and deliberate, like liquid shadows that had learned to stand upright. The longer I watched, the clearer their features became. Fragments of us, distorted. Harris's jaw, Evelyn's hair, Clara's trembling hands. Pieces of every resident stitched together by something that didn't care what fit. They stopped at the bottom of the staircase and waited. The air bent around them. The sound of the storm outside fell away, until only the slow rhythm of their breathing filled the manor. Then, from the dark at the landing above, came the woman's voice. "The 13th guest must the rest forgot. When I blinked, the hall was empty. Only candle smoke lingered in the air, faintly sweet and metallic. I stumbled back into my room and locked the door. It didn't matter. The house never cared about locks. On my desk lay the matchbook again, but the words inside had changed. You cannot light what remembers you. The letters crawled as I read them, sliding across the page like worms retreating into soil. I slammed the matchbook shut. The whisper started immediately, right behind me near the window. Resident 7. I turned. The glass was black, reflecting only candlelight, and within it faintly a silhouette moved, my own but reversed. When I lifted my hand, it lifted the other. When I stepped closer, it stepped back. Then its mouth opened, and my breath fogged the glass from its side. They don't die here, it whispered. They change rooms. Morning came slow and red. The horizon outside the windows looked wrong. Too close. The sea curling upward as though the world itself was tilting toward us. Only 4 of us were left. Me, a quiet older woman named Marnie, a man called Louis who never took off his coat, and a young boy who never told us his name but always carried a pocket watch that didn't tick. At breakfast, the woman in black placed the 5th box on the table. Her hands were trembling for the first time. The balance is wrong, she said quietly. 13 shapes, 4 voices. It won't hold. Marnie leaned forward. What happens when it breaks? The woman smiled thinly. You'll see. The house doesn't disappear. It divides. What does that mean? I asked, but she only opened the box. Inside was a small hand-carved figurine, an exact replica of the manor down to the smallest windows. A faint orange light glowed inside it, flickering like a heartbeat. The 13th carries the key, she said, and looked at me. Find yourself. That night I explored the West Wing for the first time. It shouldn't have been possible. Every door there had been locked since the first night. Now they all stood open. The hall beyond was lined with portraits again, but these were new. Every frame showed the same face. Mine. Me in the field. Me in the parlor. Me sitting at the dining table, staring directly out of the painting. The last portrait was still wet, the paint shining in the lamplight. The date scrawled in the corner was today, and the signature read, Resident 13. A soft knock sounded behind me 3 times, then a pause. When I turned, the boy with the pocket watch was standing in the doorway. His eyes were wide, unblinking. It's time, he said. For what? For you to remember which one you are. He opened his hand. The pocket watch was ticking now, but the hand spun backward. The sound grew louder until it filled the entire hallway, a clock winding itself into nothing. I felt my ears pop, like the air had been pulled out of the room. And then I saw it, the manor in miniature, the figurine from the box, now resting on the floor at my feet. Inside its tiny windows, I could see us, 4 figures at a table, a woman in black, and a 13th shadow watching from the doorway. But in the smallest reflection on the glass dome that enclosed the model, I could see myself standing outside, staring in. The 13th wasn't a person. It was the space the house left behind each time someone was taken. And it was filling again, stretching, shaping itself around me. When I looked up, the boy was gone. Only the watch remained, hands spinning faster, glass face fogging from the inside. I could hear whispers behind the walls now, running in circles through the pipes and wood. The same phrase repeated over and over in 12 overlapping voices. Find yourself, find yourself, find yourself. I opened the watch. Inside was a single black candle wick, still smoldering, burning without flame. The rest of the night passed in blurs of sound and color, the house folding in on itself, rooms changing shape, stairs stretching like taffy. By the time the morning light came, Marnie and Lewis were gone. Only 2 of us left, me and the woman, and maybe the 13th. The woman met me in the hall outside my door, hands clasped tight, expression unreadable. You understand now, she said. There can never be 12. There must always be 13. Why? Because the house remembers what was taken from it. It needs a witness. She reached out, touched my forehead with one finger. The air vibrated, and I saw it. Brief flashes of every resident, every generation, every time the house rebuilt itself from memory. Each version of Hallow's Edge filled with new faces that were never new, each one ending the same way, one survivor, one reflection left behind, one new 13th guest. When the vision faded, she was gone. In her place stood the faceless keeper. Only now, he wasn't faceless anymore. He had mine. I didn't scream when I saw it. I didn't move either, because what stood before me wasn't wearing my face. It was my face. Every scar, every line, every pore rendered in that slick wax-like sheen. Eyes hollow but perfectly shaped. It tilted its head the way I do when I'm trying to understand something. And then, slowly, it smiled. You've been a good witness, it said. Now you can keep the house remembering. When it spoke, the walls around us flickered. not light, memory. The wallpaper curled back like old film burning in a projector. Behind it, moving images shimmered, 100 different halls, 100 different versions of the same room. Every one of them had a keeper, and every keeper looked exactly like me. The woman's voice drifted from somewhere behind the images. The 13th is never a guest. It's the reflection left to watch when the others forget. I stumbled backward. The mirrors along the corridor began to warp, bulging outward as if something behind them was pushing through. Hands, faces, all of them mine. The keeper stepped forward, its wax skin beginning to melt in the candlelight, revealing darkness underneath like tar. It reached out, fingertips glistening. When they brushed my cheek, I felt nothing. But the room did. Every candle flickered. Every window darkened. The air smelled suddenly of iron and film developer. "Why me?" I asked. My voice sounded small, like a recording played through cheap speakers. "Because you stayed," it said. "Because you looked." It turned and gestured toward the end of the hall. A door was forming there, wood bleeding out of the wall, hinges growing from shadow. A single Roman numeral carved into it, 8. The keeper's door, it said. Every generation must have one. The last face becomes the first. The floor tilted beneath my feet, pulling me toward it. The handle glowed faintly, wet with light. "Open it," it said. "Finish what you started when you looked into the glass." I ran. Not toward the door. Away. But the hallway stretched longer with every step, the end receding like the vanishing point of a painting. The air thickened, colors bleeding at the edges of my vision. The voice of the keeper echoed behind me, closer every time I blinked. "Don't run. The walls only get longer when you run." I turned into another corridor, then another, but everyone ended the same way, with a mirror at the end, faintly fogged, showing me what I was doing a second too late. In the last one, I saw the keeper standing behind me. It didn't move in the reflection. It didn't have to. I felt its breath, cold, chemical, against the back of my neck. "Say your name," it whispered. When I didn't, it leaned closer. "If you don't, the house will give you a new one." Something snapped then, not in the walls, but in me. A sound like glass breaking inside my head, followed by a rush of warmth that wasn't mine. The mirrors began to move. Each reflection of me turned at once, facing the same direction, toward the far end of the corridor, where the great mirror stood, the one above the staircase, where it had all begun. Through its surface, I could see the dining room. The woman was there, setting the table again. 13 candles, all lit. Each flame was a figure, small, writhing silhouettes trapped inside the light. She looked up at me through the glass and said, perfectly calm, "You're late, Keeper." The Keeper, the one with my face, placed its hand on my shoulder. It was warm now. "The house doesn't exist without memory," it said, "and memory doesn't exist without you." The mirror pulsed once, then opened like a wound. Light poured out, hot and soft, pulling me forward. For one moment I saw everything, every resident, every iteration of the house, every century of remembering and forgetting. Each version ended the same way. Someone standing here, being touched by the Keeper, becoming it. I realized dimly that I wasn't replacing anyone. I was joining them. Every previous Keeper, every reflection, every memory, they weren't gone. They were layered, stacked like glass slides in an endless archive, each still alive, each watching. And the house was their eye. I don't remember walking through the mirror, but I must have. Because now, when I look out from the other side, I see the new residents arriving. Their faces blurred with fog, their footsteps quiet with awe. One of them looks at the mirror and pauses. They think they see themselves. They don't. They see me. There are 13 candles again. The 13th flame flickers faintly, waiting for its next breath of air. And somewhere deep beneath the house, in the breathing dark, I can still hear the voice of the woman. Every house needs its keeper. Every keeper needs a face. The mirror ripples once more, and my reflection leans forward to whisper the final truth. You can never leave a place that remembers you.